She said, "You'd be hot if you had a jawline," and then ghosted me. 2 years and a jaw surgery later, she matched with me on Bumble and said, "You look familiar." I replied, "I should. I built this face using your insult as fuel." You never forget the first time someone weaponizes your insecurities. I was 24, working an unremarkable 9 to 5 as a junior marketing assistant in a small tech startup. Life wasn't bad, just average. I lived in a decent apartment, had friends who didn't suck, and went to the gym often enough to justify the protein powder in my pantry. I wasn't the type who turned heads when I walked into a room, but I didn't think I needed to be. Until her. Let's call her Kelsey. We met through Hinge. Her profile was witty, clean, a little artsy. She liked indie films, made pottery, and had a dog named Sputnik. She seemed genuine, not the kind of girl who'd do what she eventually did. Our conversations were fast and funny. We talked about everything: movies, favorite pizza toppings, childhood pets. She liked my dry sense of humor and said I had thoughtful eyes. Whatever that meant. We went on 3 dates. Nothing extravagant. One hike, one local brewery, one dinner at a ramen place. I thought it was going well. I even thought she might be different from the others. Then came date number 4. It started fine. Drinks at a speakeasy downtown, banter about the bartender's mustache, laughter. But about halfway through the night, we were talking about dating history, past relationships, things people had said that stuck with us. And she said, "I dated this guy once who could have been really hot if he just had a better jawline. You know, some guys just don't win the genetic lottery." She laughed. Just a passing comment. I half smiled. I felt my stomach clench. I don't remember how we got from that comment to the end of the night. My brain fuzzed out the rest. But it burned into me. And it burned even harder because I knew she was talking about me. She just didn't say it outright. We texted once or twice after that. Then, radio silence. No explanation. No. Sorry, I'm just not feeling it. Just gone. I spiraled. Not because I thought she was the one, but because her words hit something I'd always tried to bury. My jawline, or lack thereof, had been a quiet insecurity since high school. I had what people call a soft chin. Rounder face. I hated side profiles. I grew facial hair to hide it. I'd tilted my face in every photo since I was 16 to try and fake some illusion of sharpness. Her comment stripped it all bare. And so I did what most people do when they get crushed in that quiet, soul-level way. I started obsessing. That night, I sat in bed Googling terms like jawline definition surgery, mandibular advancement, chin implant before and after. I fell down a rabbit hole of plastic surgery subreddits, YouTube testimonials, surgeons' portfolios. At first, I told myself it was just curiosity. But by the end of the week, I'd booked 3 consultations. My friends thought I was nuts. "It's one girl," they said. "You're not some troll. You're fine the way you are." My mom cried. My roommate laughed, said, "Dude, she's just shallow. Who cares?" But I cared. Not just because of her. Because of me. Because I realized how much I'd been hiding behind baggy hoodies and beards and forced smiles. Her insult wasn't the origin. It was the match dropped in a leaking gas tank. So I went through with it. Double jaw surgery. Genioplasty. Orthodontic adjustments. I spent $26,000 over 18 months. A mix of insurance coverage and brutal financing. The recovery was hell. Wires in my mouth. Pureed food. Weeks of swelling. I couldn't talk properly for months. My jaw clicked when I yawned. My face was numb in places for over a year. But somewhere in that mess of gauze and painkillers, I started seeing someone new. Me. The real transformation didn't just happen in the jawline. It happened when I stopped chasing approval and started chasing healing. I went to therapy. I cut back on drinking. I leaned into my work. I started treating my body like something worth maintaining. Not fixing, not punishing, but valuing. 2 years passed. And one morning, while standing in line for coffee, a girl turned around and smiled at me. I smiled back. For the first time in my life, I didn't question why. 2 years. That's how long it had been since the last time I saw or heard from Kelsey. In that time, I'd had jaw surgery, gone through orthodontics, endured rubber bands, wires, swelling that made me look like a human balloon animal, and more nights eating soup through a straw than I care to count. But the physical transformation was only half the story. What really changed was how I saw myself. For the first time in my life, I liked my reflection. Not because I suddenly looked like a movie star, but because I finally saw effort, healing, and intention staring back at me. The man in the mirror had chosen to become himself. And then came Bumble. It was a Sunday night. I was lying in bed, half watching a rerun of Succession and lazily swiping through profiles. I wasn't even trying to match, really, just scrolling, like you do when your brain is too tired to think, but not tired enough to sleep. Swipe left. Swipe left. Pause. Brown eyes. Freckles. A familiar smirk. Her name wasn't Kelsey. Not on the profile. It was Kat. But the second I saw her, I knew. Same smile. Same eyes. Same dog in one of the pictures, Sputnik, now with some gray around the muzzle. My heart did something strange. Not panic. Not excitement. More like electricity. She had no idea. She didn't recognize me. That much was obvious. I looked different. Sharper jawline, leaner face, shorter beard, more confident posture. The photos she remembered of me were buried under 2 years of work, sweat, therapy, surgery, and silent resolve. Her bio was shorter than I remembered. Just said, pottery nerd, sapiosexual, looking for someone who can make me laugh and also make a mean grilled cheese. I swiped right. We matched. And then came the message. You look familiar. Do we know each other? I sat there, staring at my phone. For a second, I debated unmatching. Just walking away. What was the point? I had nothing to prove. I was happy. I'd moved on. But something deeper stirred. Not vengeance. Not bitterness. Closure. She had lit the fire. I'd built something out of the ashes. She deserved to see it. I typed. We met a long time ago. You probably don't remember me, but I remember you. There was a pause. Then a reply. Oh, where from? High school. I smiled. No. Hinge. 2 years ago. You told me I'd be hot if I had a jawline. Then ghosted me. I wish I could have seen her face when she read that. I imagined the realization hitting like a wave. The vague recognition sharpening into full memory. Her insult coming back to her in surround sound. It took her a full 5 minutes to reply. Oh wow? I didn't. I'm sorry. That was a shitty thing to say. I read the message over and over. It wasn't an excuse. Wasn't a denial. Just sorry. But it didn't feel like enough. So I answered. Yeah, it was. But I have to thank you. Because I built this face using your insult as fuel. So in a weird way, I guess you helped me. She didn't reply for 10 minutes. I honestly thought she might unmatch. Part of me expected it. It would have been easier for her to disappear again, rather than sit in the awkward space she'd created. But then, another message popped up. Can I be real with you? I typed back. Go ahead. I was in a really bad place back then. I was drinking too much, dating carelessly, just being mean because I didn't like myself. It doesn't excuse what I said, but I wanted you to know it wasn't about you. It was about how messed up I was. I read that twice. It didn't erase what happened, but it surprised me. I replied, thanks for saying that. I've been in that place too. I just wanted you to know, I'm good now. I built a life I like. A face I don't hide. You were the spark, but I lit the fire. She responded with, you really do look good. Like, damn. I'm glad you're doing well. For real. Then, so, do you want to catch up? I'd love to buy you a drink. I stared at that message for a long time. And honestly, I considered it. Not because I wanted revenge. Not because I wanted to rub my glow up in her face. But because some broken part of me thought, wouldn't it be poetic? To sit across from her, calm and collected, while she tried to claw back what she once threw away. But then I thought about who I was now. About the man who ate soup through a straw and journaled about resilience. The man who showed up to every post-op appointment. The man who stopped letting other people define his value. He didn't need validation. So I typed one final message. Thanks for the offer. But I'm good. I think some things are better left in the past. Then I unmatched her. And smiled. Unmatching her felt like exhaling after holding my breath for 2 years. I didn't do it out of anger. I wasn't shaking or furious or gritting my teeth. If anything, I felt lighter. Like I just set down a weight I didn't realize I was still carrying. She got to see me, really see me, and know exactly what she threw away. Not just the face she insulted, but the person I became in the aftermath. And in that moment, I realized something I didn't expect to feel. I didn't want her back. Not even a little. It's weird, you know? You spend years wondering what you'd say to someone if you ever saw them again. You write fake conversations in your head, picture dramatic moments, sharp words, cool exits. And then the real thing happens, and it's quieter, simpler. almost mundane. But that's the beauty of healing. It turns rage into clarity. I hadn't even told anyone about matching with her. Not my friends, not my therapist, not my gym buddy who I usually confided in during late-night lifting sessions. It was something I wanted to keep for myself. My own little secret ending to a story I never asked to be in. But after I unmatched her, I started thinking about how much had changed. The guy I used to be, pre-surgery, pre-healing, would have jumped at the chance to meet her. To finally feel wanted by the girl who once made him feel like he was less than. That version of me would have hoped she'd compliment me, maybe flirt a little, maybe even try to kiss me. Because he still needed validation. Still believed that worth came from being chosen by the people who once ignored you. That guy? He was gone. In his place stood someone I was proud of. Someone who no longer chased ghosts or clung to what-ifs. Someone who knew that revenge doesn't always look like dramatic confrontations or public takedowns. Sometimes, revenge is just showing up whole. A week after unmatching her, I found myself sitting at my favorite coffee shop, sipping an Americano and journaling. Yeah, I journal now. Started during recovery, mostly because my therapist insisted. At first it felt awkward, like writing letters to nobody. But over time, it became like talking to the most honest version of myself. I called the journal Rebuild. That day I wrote, closure is weird. It's not always a thunderclap. Sometimes it's a slow breeze that dries the last raindrop. Kelsey didn't apologize to fix what she broke. She apologized to ease her own guilt. But I'm not bitter about it. I'm just done. That felt true. I sat there a while longer, people watching, letting that truth settle. Then my phone buzzed. It was a message from Amanda, a woman I'd matched with a week earlier. She was a school counselor, had a loud laugh, and once sent me a voice note mimicking her dog's internal monologue during thunderstorms. We'd been texting casually. Nothing serious, but easy, light, real. Hey stranger, coffee date still on for Saturday? I replied. Wouldn't miss it. Still planning on judging your oat milk order, though. That's fine, she sent back. I'll be judging your playlists. That made me smile. Because for the first time in a long time, the future didn't feel like something I had to fix. It felt like something I could build. 2 months passed. I didn't think about Kelsey much. Every once in a while, I'd see someone with a similar haircut or hear a voice that made me do a double take, but nothing more. She'd become a memory, a formative one, sure, but no longer central. Just another brick in the foundation. Amanda and I started seeing more of each other. I told her, eventually, about the surgery, about the insult, about the fire it lit. I expected her to flinch, to say, that's intense, or wow, you really took it to heart. But she didn't. She took my hand and said, that's one of the most badass things I've ever heard. You didn't change yourself for her. You reclaimed yourself. That stuck with me, because it was never about becoming someone new. It was about shedding who I pretended to be, so I could finally stand up as who I was. One night, Amanda and I were walking through the park when we passed a street artist drawing portraits. You know the kind, big eyes, exaggerated features, fun and slightly distorted. Amanda pulled me over, insisted we get one. The artist asked us to sit still. Face each other, he said. So I did. I sat there, looking at her, while she smiled at me like I was the only person in the world. And suddenly, I felt a rush of something warm and deep and grounded. Not pride, not ego, peace. And that's when it hit me. Kelsey had given me the worst kind of gift, a cruel one, wrapped in sarcasm and cowardice. But I'd taken it, reforged it, and used it to lay the first brick of something unshakable. She insulted my face. I built a life around it. It had been about 6 months since I unmatched Kelsey on Bumble. Amanda and I were still together, more than just dating now. We were learning each other's rhythms, the good and the bad. I had met her dog, a lazy old pug named Newton. She'd met my parents, and we were planning a trip to Portland together. Things were stable in a way I hadn't really known before. And it wasn't because Amanda completed me or made me forget the past. It was because I'd finally completed myself. But funny thing about life, just when you think the chapter is closed, it has a way of handing you an epilogue you didn't ask for. It was a Saturday afternoon in early spring. Amanda and I were at this local arts festival in the city, strolling past food trucks, handmade pottery, awkward acoustic guitar performances. Amanda was marveling at some blown glass sculptures while I stood nearby, sipping a lavender lemonade that tasted like overpriced soap. Then I heard a voice. Familiar. Soft. Laughing. I turned my head, and there she was. Kelsey. Hair a little shorter. Dress a little more mature. But unmistakable. She was standing at a stall selling jewelry, holding a necklace up to the light. Next to her was a guy. Tall. Athletic. Clearly trying a little too hard to seem relaxed. She was talking to him, but not really with him. Her body language was half turned away, distracted. For a second, I just stood there. Not frozen, not panicking. Just present. Aware. Amanda noticed the shift in my body and walked over. "You okay?" she asked, nudging my side gently. I nodded. "Yeah, that's just someone from my past." She followed my gaze. "The girl?" I nodded. Amanda looked at her, then at me. "Do you want to leave?" I thought about it. Honestly, I didn't. "No," I said. "I think I'm okay." And I was. But then, as fate would have it, Kelsey turned and saw me. Our eyes met. Just for a moment. I expected her to look away, maybe pretend she hadn't seen me. But instead, she offered the smallest smile. Not smug. Not flirty. Just human. Then she excused herself from the guy, walked up to me, alone, and said, "Hey." Amanda stepped slightly to the side, respectful but protective. I introduced them, briefly. Kelsey looked a little stunned. Maybe it was how different I looked in person. Or maybe it was Amanda, who clearly didn't fit the stereotype of someone you settled for. Either way, she seemed slightly off balance. "I didn't expect to see you," she said. "You look really good." "Thanks," I replied. "You too." Awkward silence. Then she added, "I never got to say it properly, but I'm really sorry for how I treated you. It was cruel. You didn't deserve that." I nodded. "I know." She looked at Amanda, then back at me. "I'm glad you're doing well. Really." "I am," I said, smiling genuinely. "Better than ever, actually." Another beat of silence. She hesitated, then said, "That message you sent me, the one about building your face using my insult, it stuck with me. I think about it a lot." I didn't say anything. She continued, "You were right. I was mean. And I was projecting. I wasn't proud of who I was." I looked her in the eye and said, "I hope you are now." That surprised her. A little flicker of emotion passed over her face. She smiled softly. "Thanks. I'm getting there." With that, she nodded at Amanda and turned back to her date. We watched her walk away, and I let out a slow breath. Amanda squeezed my hand. "You handled that like a champ." I grinned. "Did I?" "Very composed. Honestly, you should have dropped a mic." I laughed. My hands were full, and I don't carry microphones. Later that night, I thought about what closure really is. People think it's this big, cinematic moment. A final confrontation. A shouted monologue. A door slammed in someone's face. But sometimes, closure is just recognizing that the thing you once wanted, an apology, revenge, validation, no longer holds any power over you. And in its place, there's peace. That's what I felt. Not triumph. Not superiority. Just peace. I'd made a life I was proud of. I'd taken an insult, a cruel dismissal, and used it as scaffolding for my best self. I didn't need her to understand it, or admire it, or even see it. But she did. And somehow, that made it all feel complete. The days after running into Kelsey passed in a strange blur, a mix of relief, reflection, and unexpected gratitude. It felt like I had crossed a threshold, stepping from who I was into who I had always wanted to be. I thought back to that moment when I first heard her cruel words. 12 years old, sitting quietly in the corner of the classroom, and the kind of mocking that slices deeper than any physical hurt. "You'll end up working for someone like me," she sneered. Back then, it felt like a prophecy, a verdict passed down with certainty. Like I was already destined to be small, unimportant, defined by her judgment. I remembered the sting of that insult, the way it echoed in my mind on the rough days, the nights when I felt unseen and misunderstood because of my autism. But now, looking back, I understood something crucial. It wasn't her words that shaped me, but how I chose to respond. I didn't just build a jawline. I built resilience, purpose, and success. After that encounter at the festival, I felt this urge to fully own my story, not just as a victim or a survivor, but as the architect of my own life. It was time to lean into everything I'd worked for and celebrate it. So, that week, I organized a small gathering with close friends, family, and Amanda. We met at a cozy rooftop bar overlooking the city skyline. As I stood there, looking out at the lights, I realized how far I'd come. I raised my glass and said, to building ourselves, not just our faces, but our futures. To turning insults into fuel and doubt into determination. To finding strength in the things that once hurt us. There were cheers and smiles all around. Amanda squeezed my hand and whispered, I'm so proud of you. Her words, simple and sincere, meant more than anything. In the weeks that followed, my confidence continued to grow. Work was challenging, but invigorating. I found joy in every project, every collaboration, every chance to push boundaries and design spaces that weren't just beautiful, but meaningful. I also made sure to give back, volunteering with organizations that supported autistic youth, mentoring them to find their own strengths and voices. Because if there was one thing I wanted to do with my success, it was to help others believe in their own potential, especially when the world seemed ready to tell them otherwise. And what about Kelsey? After that festival meeting, I never reached out again, and neither did she. But I realized I didn't need to. We'd shared a moment of honesty and closure. Sometimes, that's all people need to move forward. She'd been part of my past, a painful chapter that helped me understand who I wasn't and who I was determined to be. Now, when I look in the mirror, I don't just see the result of surgery or hard work. I see a person who refused to be limited by other people's cruel words or narrow expectations. A person who transformed pain into purpose. And that, more than anything, is what I'm proud of. Final thoughts. If there's one thing I want anyone reading this to take away, it's this. Your worth isn't defined by other people's judgments or insults. It's defined by how you respond to them. The power to build a future you're proud of is inside you. Sometimes it just takes time, courage, and a little bit of fire to get there. So to anyone who's ever been told they're not enough, I see you. I believe in you. And your story isn't over. Thank you for reading my journey. Up.